Welcome, Habari Ghani. On behalf of the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community, I want to welcome you to now, this is the fifth day of Kwanzaa. This is Nia, Purpose, and on behalf of the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community, I am N.Y. Nethiri, the Executive Director, joined by my co-creator or co-conspirator. Sometimes you have to be careful. I forget, the way that we used to use the language in current times, it's really, the rhetoric is quite something. So I say with respect and humor that she is my conspirator in this work of the Kwanzaa programming, and that is Sydney Rose McCall, who is a graduate, a master's level graduate from Florida A&M University. This afternoon, I think that we have the ability to speak very clearly about the direct relationship between something that happens to the individual and how that extrapolates out to the community. I want to acknowledge, before I introduce Mayor David Allen, I want to acknowledge the presence of Terry Olson and of also Mayor Bobby Jones from Princeville, North Carolina, a sister member of the Historic Black Towns and Settlements Alliance. Mayor David Allen, I've asked him to share a personal incident and to then draw that relationship between that incident and what he has been able to develop that has a community impact. Mayor Allen is a graduate of Prairie View A&M University in Texas. He also has served as mayor of that community, and in his capacity with Historic Black Towns and Settlements Alliance, he serves as the vice president for marketing. We will do as is our custom. He will start giving with an overview that will take about 15 minutes, and then we will open up our forum for audience interaction. Mayor David Allen, will you go ahead and start us off?
Well, first, giving honor to God, I want to thank the Honorable N.Y. Nethiri and all of you, my fellow mayor, Mayor Jones. I want to recognize you as well. As we all know, Kwanzaa is an African-American celebration of life, celebrating African family values. Well, those values start with, as Ms. N.Y. just stated, the individual. The family is the collective of those individuals. And when we speak of the community and the purpose, whatever happens, just like the coronavirus to an individual out in the community, you bring that home and you affect one way or another members of that family, that household. Well, I was unfortunately exposed to what I would call my worst experience in 1980 in Los Angeles. I was new to the city and was actually on my way to a job interview. And I was dressed as I would for the interviews that I was going. I was dressed pretty much like Mr. Terry Olson there, coat and tie. And that day, it didn't matter. I was leaving Crenshaw Boulevard, headed down towards, on Florence, headed toward the 110 Harbor Freeway. And as I went under the freeway and was looking to make the left and enter the freeway entrance ramp, headed toward downtown Los Angeles, all hell broke loose. I was blocked by several cars, marked and unmarked police cars. I was surrounded on three sides, and I was scared because these officers, as they stopped the car, they got out the cars, and all of them were pointing guns at me. And I didn't know what was going on, but I was scared. Of course, I stopped my car and they spoke on the microphone, stick my hands out the vehicle, which I did. And then they had me open my door from the outside. And and I was scared to get out the car because they were already pointing the guns at me. And I knew when I exited the car, I would actually make a bigger, better target. I mean, I was in the military. I think like that. And that's um, what actually made the experience worse because I knew what could happen. And as I got out of the car, they had me get on the ground in my suit, my best suit at the time. And, but it didn't make me hesitate at all. When they said get on my knees, I got on my knees. And then they had me lay on the ground. And I was following their directions. I didn't move except when they told me to move. So when they told me to do that, and then when they told me to put my hands behind my back, I complied with that as well. And my face was, on the ground. So I couldn't really see anything until they got close to me and I could see their feet. And then I was handcuffed. And one of them picked me up almost by the handcuffs. And my shoulders just went into immense pain. I was just glad that he picked me up rather quickly because it hurt. It hurt badly. But again, I didn't say a word. I mean, until they spoke to me, I didn't feel like I could speak. And again, I was so scared, I didn't know what to do or say anyway. Well, long story short, they made their calls, but they informed me that my car was fitting the description of that of a convenience store robbery in Los Angeles. And I'm thinking, who drives a 75 Corvette Stingray and think they're going to get away from the police in terms of not being noticed and what have you? But I was just thinking this. I didn't say a damn word. Okay. But then when they told me that, they asked me if well, there was a lady, I'm sorry, the the part that touches my soul the most. There was an older African American lady. I couldn't really look at her because she was on the corner on the passenger side of my car. And again, I'm looking at all these police officers and not wanting to make a move that would make somebody have an excuse to pull the trigger. So, but she said, don't, she said, don't y'all hurt that boy. And I started thinking my mother was going to get a phone call that I'd been shot and killed. But I couldn't even, you know, turn to look at her to maybe thank her one day because all the police were on the other side, pretty much of the car. But when when they explained to me, well, not explained, they just told me that I'm standing there handcuffed. They know it's not me, and I'm still standing there handcuffed, having to listen to the conversation. And again, I'm just thankful that they're talking and they put their guns away at this point. But the the purpose, the impact, that was in 1980. I am 65 years old, and it affects me today. It's affecting me right now. And what do you take back to the family values, to the community? I can no longer say I've never been handcuffed, even though I didn't do it, a thing. I can still say I've never been to jail, except one time several years here, right after 3 months after the Sandra Bland incident. A young city councilman, Jonathan Miller, was tased by a white police officer. And I just knew it was so wrong because I knew him and had actually supported him in his run for council. And that was before. So I went to jail to try to pick him up early that morning and bring him home. You know, he still had blood on his t-shirt from being tased and what have you. But what I would say to all of you, since well, Mayor Jones, with that exception, Mayor Jones being a fellow African American man, we could be in the same room and look at each other and not have to speak a word. That's what we did at the Million Man March. Many of the men around me cried. We didn't know each other. We never seen each other, but we could relate to some of the things that the speakers were talking about, which is what made us come from all around the country to the Million Man March. I didn't know my son was very young, a matter of a couple of months. And I just told his mother at the time, I just have one question for you. I just want you to know, I just want to know, do you want me to take, is it okay to take our son? Because his daddy's going. The answering of that call still impacts so many of us today, because the reasons, like my experience, which was totally avoidable, totally unnecessary, and I've done nothing but try to give back into my community. But unfortunately, Miss NY called me and yeah, sure, I'll be glad to, do that. I'm free tomorrow. But then she reminds me that this experience is what she wants me to share. And I got chills because I try not to think about it, because all it does is hurt. Now, there's something that a company came up with, and I'm going to give you a phone number and a website. And for the record, I'm going to give my personal phone number in case someone wants to call about this or anything else. It's area code 323-646-9818. That's my personal cell. And the website, which gives us the only 24/7 access to call an attorney in emergencies. You could be pulled over for a traffic ticket. You could be in a car accident. You could be in the mall and the mall security is acting stupid. Or you could be in a situation like I was. I reflect as and the website is www.davidallen, DAVIDALLEN.biz. B as in baby, I, Z as in zebra, short for business. I keep, as I round up my time, the very first thing that you may not be able to see because of the light on my phone says 24/7 access to attorney in emergency. It's also the first thing on my son's phone. because I tell them, don't call mom and don't call dad because we can't help you. Only your lawyer can help you. And that website gives us access. I reflect on things like Trayvon Martin. He was on the phone to his girlfriend in Florida. She couldn't help him. Rodney King was in his car and he could have had an attorney on the phone had this thing been here at that time. When I look at Mr. George Floyd and how callous for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, that white police officer stood on his neck, the callous look on his face tells me and so many others that the climate has gotten much worse, folks. If I had been stopped like that in today's climate, I would not be here. I would not be alive. There's no doubt in my mind. Officers are feeling like it's okay to kill, even with the physical touch. The gun makes it easy because you've got distance. The only thing that saves me as I drive around today is knowing I am no longer alone because of this 24/7 access to an attorney. And I make sure my 4 brothers and my nephews and my son have it as well, because yes, we're all targets. That's unfortunate, but that's real. And that's a major part of what's going on in the community, and how so many things you see you may not understand because you don't know what we've gone through that we can't even talk about. Miss NY, my 15 minutes is up. I respect time.
So I want to ask you if you will then say, from a practical point of view, what is it that having that attorneys, in other words, walk us through the scenario. You are stopped. You are stopped. So what does having the attorney's number on your and access, what does that give you? In
Okay.
practical terms, what does that give you?
I will give you the response that I got from one of the attorneys, because like you, I didn't understand it. I liked it. I just didn't understand it. When I was doing my Black college tours from LA, going down to FAMU and Tallahassee and other places, okay? Yes, Miss McCall, we went to your school. We were stopped one day by a state trooper in Alabama. And I was in the second bus that day. We had 2 charter motor coaches. And I had the second one pull up at a safe distance, and I got off, told him to lock the doors. And I walked up to the officer and I said, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" He put his hand on his gun and he told me, "Get my ass back on that bus." I said, "Excuse me, sir, they're both my buses. They're under contract to me. If there's a problem, I think I have a right to know." He said, "We have a right to stop these buses on our highway." I said, "Yes, sir, you do." This was a Saturday. And I told him, "I'd like to call my attorneys before you get on my bus." And I asked them, they have information in my wallet. Can I get it? So I turned around and showed him I was pulling out my wallet. And I walked up and I handed him my driver's license and my legal shield card. He said, "This is a California license, and these buses have Texas plates," because we'd flown into Houston. I said, "Yes, sir, but we have Alabama lawyers, and I'd like to speak with my attorney if you insist on wanting to get on my bus." He gave me my driver's license and stuff back, got in his state trooper car and pulled off, and left me wondering what the hell happened, because I was still shaking. I called the attorneys that Monday and I told them what happened. And I said, "I'm really glad that, you all instilled this, but I need to understand why." He said, "The state troopers, law enforcement officers have the right to stop us with their badge and a gun and question us. When the lawyers get involved, the lawyers question them, and they said they get concerned about things like their paycheck and their pension when they have to deal with us when they stopped you without probable cause. I said, I got it. That's all I need to know. That's what it does. That's why the access is so important. I've been stopped probably about 4 times in the last 17 years since they added this service. Each time I've got an attorney on the phone before the officer gets to my door. And a couple of times they've walked away. One time, the attorney asked to speak to the officer. The officer spoke to him, gave my phone back, and then he left. All out of hand. I don't mind being stopped. I respect what officers do. They've got a dangerous job, and I understand they don't know what they're going to walk up to. But I don't want to be, when I was running the NAACP, what we went through with that video with Rodney King under cover of darkness, because it's gotten so flagrant, they don't have to wait until the sun goes down anymore, and they don't care if people are videoing them. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want my son, my loved ones to go through something if it can be avoided, and that's what this does. I'm all for it. It does a lot of other stuff, but I would pay that 70 something cents, 80 cents a day just for that, because I know what happens out there. They don't have to tell me anymore.
All right. We are at the point where we like to have engagement by the people who are in the audience. The reason that I thought it's so important for Mayor Allen to speak on this day when we talk about purpose is because it seems to me that if we as a community do not assume our responsibility to address problems, then they continue, they fester. So with this business of the collective, being able to have experienced what he did and being able to share about the legal shield, I thought I thought a concrete example. You know, here at the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community, we're very much in the spirit of Zora Neale Hurston, and Zora Neale Hurston was about pragmatic. She was a pragmatist. Not, not a lot of chat, but really trying to make things at a basic level. So as we enter this part of the forum, I just want to invite Isaac Terry, Josephine Folger Anderson, I see, is with us. Once again, Professor Cheryl Nelson is here with us. Marie Ferguson, welcome. Just would like to have you engage with Mayor Allen and with the rest of us. Just what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
For the record, everyone's on mute. So if you're saying something, you need to unmute.
Thank you. Yes, everybody is on mute.
I do know one individual who's in my community who's listening via my account. She was texting me as you were speaking, Mayor Allen, and she was saying how she understands how the ecosystem of white supremacy is so prevalent in the United States and beyond, and it hits different areas of our life, as we know, especially in law enforcement. So she wanted to know from your work, you had mentioned the NAACP, she wanted to know what are ways that young folks and grown folks as well can get involved either with their NAACP chapters, or do they have to call somebody or write in?
Oh, awesome. No, a great question. No, and there's so many ways because NAACP has so many different committees. I wound up becoming on the board, a committee. I was over the youth and college division. So they've got a program where we're able to send or bring the young ones, and they've got competitions and again, some organized projects for our young ones. They also have committees like labor and industry that I chaired because of my background with employment discrimination. I was with a civil rights law firm out in LA across the hall from Johnny Cochran's office for many years. And God rest his soul, good man. But the ability to become a member is, it would start with that, because even if you can't attend meetings, the minimal fee, I think it's, I don't know, $25 a year now, something like that for basic membership. And then they've got something different for college and younger students. But I think the exposure to our history is a big part that helped with my son and so many others. But the opportunity to volunteer or just become a member and know that you're supporting that way is something that anyone can do no matter where they live. And nowadays it's easy enough on our cell phone to look up NAACP, and if you don't see anything, you can always contact the headquarters in Baltimore, and they can let you know who your nearest is, or you can join the Life. Like I was a member of the LA, and I became a Life member. Well, the Life membership is with National, so it doesn't matter where you live as well.
I'd like to pose a question to the group. And this comes specifically out of a news item that I heard this morning in Orange County. And it really reflects, to me, if there's a problem, I'm always interested in where do we find the solution. All right. So we are told that the statistics say that 3 times the number of people who are dying from COVID are African ancestry in this country. In Orange County, I believe the note was, or in the state of Florida, that 16% of the COVID cases, the negative impact is on African Americans. However, at this point, only 6% of the vaccinations have been administered to African Americans. All right. So take this as a problem. And now let's say countywide, because of course you know that the government that has the most impact on you is the local government. So we can't do anything about California, New York, Georgia. What we can talk about is Orange County. In Orange County, and this is just an example of how can we approach this. If in Orange County, the COVID incidents are, say, 3 times as much, if we use that as an example, then how are we going to impact the decision making about who gets the vaccinations, right? How are we going to impact that as a community? And I'm speaking now, I'm speaking about the African American community, but I'm also speaking about the community at large. In other words, this is a question. How are we going to impact the health disparity? How are we going to impact the health disparity practically so that 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we don't hear that, well, the vaccine was administered to these people, all right? The people who really are not suffering the health disparity. To me, it really is literally a problem to be addressed, because if you don't address it, what's going to change? I mean, this is just a regular question of how do you make a change that is going to have a concrete impact so that you don't have to fall back on the quote unquote systematic racism. I mean, I would really like to have us talk about this, because this is clearly something that we are facing as a community and as a nation. I'm really interested in anybody's comment.
Hi, I'd like to offer up a real quick comment on this. Thank you. First of all, thank you for this Kwanzaa celebration. I've tried to attend all week. I am coming from California. I was on vacation in your area a few years back, and I stopped by the museum, and I think that's how I got on your email distribution list. But I'm still in California. But one thing I'm going to try to do about the vaccine is, I know this may sound simple, but I'm not going to take it. If I choose to take it, I'm not going to take it in my community. I'm going to leave my community and go to a more affluent community and take the vaccine. That way I feel possibly that I may get a good dose, opposed to a dose that's labeled for an urban community. That's just my thoughts on that.
That's a good point.
And let's follow that a little bit. Please, let's follow that. Are you saying that you feel that there's going to be, in other words, that not all the medicine is going to be the same?
It's a possibility. I mean, that's how I feel. Yeah.
It's already, hello, everyone. It's already been researched that the different pharmaceutical companies have COVID vaccines of different strengths as well as availability. For example, Pfizer right now is #1. Then you have AstraZeneca. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You also have Moderna. Is that also correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Pfizer right now is being touted as 95% effective. Everything else falls underneath Pfizer. So when a person in a predominantly Black or Hispanic community goes to get the vaccine, ask, which are you getting? Are you getting Pfizer like Trump and, Biden and the others at the top of the food, at the top of the power structure in the United States? Or are you going to get the one that's only 75% effective? And I forget which one that is right now. But there are different vaccines of different strengths by different companies. And it has been said that communities of color will not get the top one.
All right, so let me follow up a little bit. This is Professor Cheryl Nelson out of Philadelphia that was speaking. I will tell you the reason that all of this sometimes just seems so, it's mind-boggling, all right? There was an initiative by Black physicians in Philadelphia to get testing. See, this is for me a disconnect. When you try to get, they started this, these are African-American physicians who had to take the bull by the horns. Mm-hmm. They had to set up their own mechanism for testing because the Black population was not being tested. At the very same time that the news media is reporting how that is the Black population that is dying. You know, I mean, I'm just saying to you, as a manager, this is to me absolutely, you know, this is ridiculous. In other words, why isn't the Black population being tested? Why are they being denied? Now, let me just be clear. People have gone to try to get a test and have been denied the test. This is not, you know, conspiracy. This is just the doggone data. So, as I say, the reason that, to me, for this discussion on Kwanzaa about purpose and about collective purpose, and here we are, you know, with the COVID, that this is, you know, this is something that you can really get your hands around. This is not some conceptual, this is not Tuskegee, you know, back in the 30s and 40s, all right? This is not slavery, enslavement times, you know, when Black women were experimented on in terms of gynecological processes. This is what's happening, as they say, right now. Okay. And so it seems to me that this is something that needs to be a part of the general discussion of how to manage. So that's, and Mr. Terry, thank you. It's so good to have you be in California. And I'm saying this because our arts instigator, Terry Olson, is on the line. And for him to actually hear for real that there are people who come to Eatonville not just at festival time, but year round. And I say that because in terms of purpose, if I can just sort of go into the commercial real quick for Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community, what our purpose is to make certain that as long as the United States of America is a vibrant society, that the historic Eatonville community is a vibrant community. We're not looking to have a road marker that said, you know, this here was, you know, historic Eatonville from 1887 to 2057. We are really on the ground. And what we are saying, frankly, is that the historic Eatonville community has the ability to bring to Orange County a kind of level of not just recognition, but a quality of life because of what we represent as a part of the American saga. So over the next 12 months, we are taking the financial bull by the horns, and it is our intention to raise $1.5 million to provide ourselves with a cushion, a financial cushion over the next 5 years, because we think that we can be responsible in that way. And I want to remind what Professor Cheryl Nelson mentioned when she said, yes, if 1 million people were to invest $5, you know, we would easily manage. I want to remind those of you who were not on the Zoom meeting yesterday, that on, this is now Wednesday, on Monday it was, that Terry Olson shared the story that of his 50 cents weekly allowance, he gave 5 cents. Think of this now, a nickel he saved and gave to the college fund that he would eventually go and attend. All right. It's just so important to know that a little bit of commitment goes a long way. So I have done that commercial, and now it's time to return. I'd like to invite Mayor Bobby Jones, if you would, to talk a little bit about Princeville in North Carolina and what community responsibility means there, especially if you will relate to the fact that Princeville was flooded and actually was destroyed, and what you all have been able to do over the last, 10, 15 years to make certain that that community is surviving.
Good evening, everyone. And we certainly thank you for this opportunity. We thank Mayor Allen for your story. Even though I live in the South, I've never experienced anything to that magnitude. So we thank you for what you brought to our attention. Of course, we know it's going on throughout the world, but we just pray and hope things will get better. For the town of Princeville, we were devastated in 1999 and again in 2016. However, things are looking very good for us now. Some things are happening now that we wanted to happen in 1999. They took a study, started in 1999, just completed the study in 2016, and now we see the fruition of the study. They are building the dike, enhancing the dike, which is gonna hopefully keep the waters out from this point forward. Not only are they working on the dike, but they are repairing all of the floodgates. We are doing a water sewer drainage system, replacing all of the dilapidated culverts with larger culverts. The citizens are cleaning up their own property now because we're cleaning up properties within the town of Princeville. It's important that we understand that when people see progress, they'll want to be a part of that progress. So things are looking beautiful. In addition to that, we were on the TV talking about the town of Princeville. We getting invitation to come talk about Princeville throughout the country now, which is always a positive for us, because when I came into the office in 2013, I ran for office in 2013. The only reason I ran for office was because, one, the citizens called and asked me to run. And the second thing was, every time I picked up a newspaper, it was something negative about our people, something negative about our town, and I knew we could do better. So that's the reason I ran, with one of the goals: for every negative article produced about the town of Princeville, we would produce at least 5 positive articles. And from 2014 until today, we have certainly accomplished that mission. We have purchased an additional approximately 150 acres of land on higher ground, where we're going to have mixed use. One of the things we have a problem with, not only in Princeville, but all over Eastern North Carolina, is housing. So we're going to be able to offer people housing. The town hall will probably move back into town hall next month. They're in the process now of rebuilding our senior citizen center. The museum is under consideration for rebuilding. It's going to be rebuilt. It just takes a little bit more time. We have 75 citizens who requested elevation of their homes, and right now we're in the process of elevating those homes. Unfortunately, we had 22 people to participate in the buyout. We never want anybody to leave us. However, that was their choice. And of course, those are the type of things that we should have been going on all along. But for us as African Americans, what I tell people all the time is, when I came into office, the reason that we were so far behind, because we could not sit down to the table ourselves and agree to disagree. It's okay to agree to disagree. Just iron out your frictions before you come to the public. When people see you're getting along, the world sees the importance of our community. The world is coming in to assist us. And then again in 2013, one of our platforms was, let us make Princeville great again. And now this was before our current president says make United States great again. This was in 2013. We said this: let's make Princeville great again, with the understanding that I couldn't do it alone. The commissioners couldn't do it alone. The citizens couldn't do it alone. We opened our arms for the world, and the world certainly came in 2013, 2014, and they're still with us now. So that's why all those great things are going on. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Indeed, that is very good to hear about Princeville. All right. Are there any?
Yeah, I've got one for the mayor.
Please. Mm-hmm.
Mayor Jones, commendable. Believe me, each of those things, I'm hearing FEMA, HUD, you know, all that federal money that we all needed and what have you. We were finally able to tap into some of that. And like you, I ran for some of those same reasons. We were way behind on economic development in Prairie View, and we're blessed to get in a little over 600 million in my 4.5 years, and we're still culminating a new $500 million project. Do you have an HBCU in your neighborhood anywhere?
Not in our neighborhood. The closest HBCU that we have is in Raleigh. They have satellite campuses closer, but
Okay.
Shaw University, St. Augustine's University,
Yeah.
North Carolina A&T is about an hour and a half away, but Shaw and St. Augustine is about an hour away.
Okay, we still may be able to do something. The people I'm working with now, we're looking to take it on the road. I think my good buddy Mayor Jones in Grambling may be one of our first, but then they've got somebody at Jackson State that wanted us. But I wanted to ask you, do you have a grants or project manager going after keeping you up on all the state and federal money that's available for your community?
We do not. We are a very small staff, and we got so many things going on now. We don't have anybody to run after grants for us.
Okay, I've got, well, you can get my number from Miss NY, but I've got one.
I have it already.
Okay.
That
Because
323.
the company project management that I contacted, because like you, again, we had a very small staff. Now that we've got the property taxes coming in off all these things that are floating in, you know, we've more than doubled our police force and staff in-house and what have you as well. But I don't see any reason why, since some of the money they brought in addition to whatever we had statewide, they brought in some federal money. They may be able to help you with some situations too, because FEMA and all that stuff being federal shouldn't matter where you are. But please send me a text and I'll be glad to send you project management's information. And you can easily drop my name.
Thank you so much.
And let's see what they can do for your community as well.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
That doesn't. Yes. I'm going to ask, say that's Sydney McCall. Yes, I'd like you to share the comment that Terry Olson put in the chat. My glasses aren't strong enough I simply saw it was his name in Orange County. So I would like to have you share that with the audience, please.
So he's sharing some reports specifically on our Florida community. But the first comment that he had shared had to do with Orange County, that one of the locations for free vaccines provide the same dose for anyone who makes a reservation. And then further down, he adds, an October report, the first 2 large clinical trials of candidate vaccines have managed to include about 3,000 Black participants each. It hasn't been easy, and the later trials might have even more trouble. Polls show that among racial and ethnic groups, Black Americans are the most hesitant to get a vaccine once it becomes available, and their skepticism is rising fast. So again, that goes back to the history of Black experimentation and medical apartheid in our communities. So I would imagine part of the solution is for medical experts to be able to communicate with their Black and brown patients and the communities that don't go to the doctor about acknowledging those injustices and also talking about plans to remedy them. And I know for one, my brother who just started up at Rush Hospital in Chicago, that's one thing that, even though he's in psychiatry, that's one thing that he and his colleagues have been talking about, is how to help educate their patients who are very skeptical about taking a vaccine once it becomes available.
Thank you.
Ms. NY? One of the concerns, and I know everyone is more familiar with the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, but when you get into things like COINTELPRO, where the FBI went after not just the Black Panther, they went after the feminist movements, anyone that crazy J. Edgar Hoover just felt was maybe getting more media than he was. I don't know. But those type of things where they, particularly with the COINTEL piece, where they went specifically into the African American community to shut down and neutralize the Black Panther Party, because they were the first ones to do the after school programs, feeding the kids and things like that. There's a lot of understandable skepticism. That being said, having had COVID-19 about 5-6 weeks ago myself, I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. And knowing that from everything I've read, heard, and followed, because I happened to be in Vietnam in December and through January, and after I got back, you know, your cell phone kind of keeps giving you news from where you were. They started talking about this thing. And then when I realized it was in Ho Chi Minh, Saigon, where I was, I got scared because I'm like, what the hell is this? And they didn't know what it was and all of this. So I am going to take the vaccine, and I'm going to take it as soon as it's available. I'm 65, so I've got some, and I'm pre-diabetic, so I'm just going to say diabetes, whatever it takes to get it, because I don't want to go through that again. You know, the pain and aching, and I stayed up all night. I make it a point of understanding my body. At night is when your body is the most vulnerable because you're relaxed and sleeping, resting. So that's why so many people wake up with, you know, congestion and head colds and all that after sleeping. So I wouldn't lie down. And I said, if they're going to rush me like they've been rushing everybody else to the emergency room, they're going to do it after the sun comes up, because they just ain't going to get me that easy. So I would go to bed at 5 or 6 in the morning. Sometimes the movies were watching me, but I was still sitting up. But I am going to take it and encourage folks to take it. And I'm going to tell you why. 30, 40 years ago, the computer took up the whole basement of our administration building, and they had to keep it cold. Now this holds more than that computer did. So I understand why they can do now in 8 months what used to take 8 years, 30, 40 years ago. Plus, unlike most things, they had some of the best minds in the world, not in the US, in the world, attacking, sharing information. And between the clinical trials they did, and look at it this way, they're going after inoculating the medical professionals first, then the elderly and those folks, and then the first responders. Look at it this way, because we have to, because like I said, we have been mistreated, and we're the only ones that have been slaves in this country. So we understand different than a lot of people do. But when you look at this as being one ongoing massive clinical trial around the world, not just in the US, all the people they've been giving it to is merely a continuation of the clinical trials. And the only thing I've heard in the US or anywhere else is an allergic reaction to people who already had bad allergic reactions to other medications and things like that. So we have to open up, because many of you, I've never taken the flu vaccine. Many of you have taken the flu vaccine, and they still don't know what's going on with that. So if you look at this like that, it's not new. It's just a new shot. But we've been taking shots from so many things from the school days. We have to open up and say, oh my God. Now I understand what Isaac Terry was saying too. So if you need to do that, but don't discount it, because you don't know what it would do to your body. My employee that gave it to me went in the emergency room a week before I got it. He got out 2 weeks after I got better. So you don't know. And again, so many people aren't making it out. So I would rather take it and avoid that than get it, and you happen to be one of those 330 something thousand people who your particular system or some little thing you've got that's normally okay to live with, but now you start talking, not this one. So, you know, be careful, do what you need to do, but look at everything. We have to really look past COVID-19 and past the Tuskegee experiment and COINTELPRO and everything else, and really take a look at, get the information for yourself. And once you get the facts, then you can make an intelligent decision. But don't base it on what our friends and family tell us, because they don't know any more and they may know less than you do. So look it up. These things, we look up everything else. Look it up, do your little research, you know, and again, even if you need to get it from another community, do what you need to do to protect you and those that you love, because those numbers are only going up over 3,000 every day. And that's the deaths, not the new cases. And if you went around friends and family for Christmas, go get tested.
I think
Mayor
the rhythm
Allen.
of what everyone is saying is that we always have to have purpose and stay informed, Mayor Allen. I think that is a theme that you're reiterating for us.
Man.
Particularly be informed. So many in our community, being a English professor whose specialty is reading, okay, so many in our community do not read. Okay? They do not take the opportunity to investigate. Okay, and as you said, Mayor Allen, they go on hearsay and folk tales and so forth and so on. But we have to make this information palatable for the people who are not going to sit down and Google or read the pamphlets that may be put in the door. And I think that it is incumbent upon our Black churches, okay? And I'm particularly talking about the Black pastors who are in charge of the mega churches in Philadelphia, who are making sure that their membership has information on not only the different manufacturers, but what the vaccine entails in a language that the community understands. All this scientific, pharmaceutical, lingo is going to go over many in our community's heads.
Absolutely.
So organizations, fraternities, sororities, boys and girls clubs, and as I said, particularly the Black churches, must make all efforts to inform the community about the vaccine versus, the historical occurrences, medical tragedies that have happened, because we have to understand that there's a large segment of the population that will not read the scientific stuff. They will not.
Well, Miss Sandra McCall posted something that Miss NY you might not be able to read based on what you said earlier. She said, we take shots for everything. The flu vaccine is only 50 to 60% effective every year, yet we take it without question. See that? I mean, I don't take it, but again, the people that do take it, that's the kind of thing we want to share with them, to let them know what you're taking is only 50 to 60% effective, and 60,000 people died last year from the flu. So you may want to take a look at this, because they're saying 90, 95. Again, whatever it takes to get them to relate to it, and not
each one teach one, each one reach one. This is what we have to do.
That's a purpose. Now, this has been, I would say, a very, this has been a strong and serious session, come back tomorrow because we're going to have a showcase of artists, visual artists, singers, instrumentalists, and it will be, I think, a fun time. It will be a lighter session than today. Thank you so much for your time. Very pleased with our presence in the public square, and to know that there is a commitment of persons who enjoy this kind of programming. I want to say to you, until next time, Asante Sante.